Hi, it's Summer, and I am so excited today to talk to you about my favorite books of 2025. As of right now, I've read 139 books so far, which I think is the most I've ever read in a year. So because of that number, I do have a lot of books on this list, and I do want to start the video with a list of my honorable mentions. I do have quite a few of these, and I'm just gonna do them like rapid fire. Ready or Not, Something Wild and Wonderful, Two Can Play, For the Fans, Beg, Borrow, or Steal, Fake Dates and Mooncakes, If It Makes You Happy, People Watching, A Land So Wide, Warrior, Princess, Assassin, Tourist Season, Paladin's Grace, Wreck My Plans, Swift and Saddled, Must Love, Moss and Moonshine, Princess Knight, and D-Bend. But now let's get into my top favorites. I have 17 on my official list. Up until number 7, these are in no particular order. Also, the lighting in this video is going to be a little bit all over the place. The weather today is like super rainy and cloudy, so I'm so sorry, it's gonna be going back and forth. Number 17 is Good Spirits by B.K. Borison. We also just need to take a moment for how beautiful this edition is. I just barely read this book, I think a week or two ago, and I loved it. It definitely was a little bit slower paced, and for a little bit there I was kind of worried that I wasn't going to love it as much as I thought I would, but by the end I definitely was in love with it. This one is a Christmas romance about Nolan and Harriet. Nolan is a ghost of Christmas past, and he has been tasked with haunting Harriet so that she can fix her past mistakes and live a better life as a better person. But she's not a bad person, like she's not a Scrooge character. So they're kind of confused why he's supposed to be haunting her. So they're kind of like taking these trips back to moments in her past, analyzing them. But through all of it, they end up falling in love. Harriet owns an antique store and it felt like a character on its own. I loved the scenes that took place there. I loved that this felt like epic because it does cover so much time. Not necessarily that like this book spans a large amount of time, but you get to see so many different aspects in both of their lives throughout time. It explores complex family dynamics. I loved the Christmas vibes, loved the romance. It was also spicy. It was really good. I can 100% see myself rereading this every year around this time, just like Love Light Farms has become that book for me by this same author. I just feel like B.K. Borison knows how to write a good holiday book. I have a feeling this is going to be on a lot of people's favorites this year. Next on my list is Mayra by Nikki Gonzalez. It's horror and it follows this toxic female friendship, which I think is one of my favorite themes in horror. I loved that this was slow burn and very gothic feeling. The setting was so specific and well described, and the house that these women are staying at felt like its own character. I guess I should say what the synopsis of this is first. This is about Ingrid and Mayra, who were childhood best friends that had a falling out. So now, years later, it says, when Mayra calls out of the blue to invite Ingrid to a weekend getaway at a house in the Everglades, she impulsively accepts. From the moment Ingrid sets foot in the house, danger looms. The directions are difficult, there's no cell service, and as she drives deeper into the Everglades, the wet maw of the swamp threatens to swallow her whole. Throughout the book, you get to see flashbacks of Ingrid and Mayra as teenagers, and I really liked that. It felt really relatable. I think my favorite part of the book, though, was the writing style. It was very beautiful and descriptive without being pretentious. The way that the writing flowed from scene to scene was just so seamless, and it was a little bit like stream of consciousness, which I felt like fit perfect for the book because this book is very like fever dream like, so I feel like the stream of consciousness just really fits into that. I definitely am excited to read more from this author in the future. Next on my list is Soul Searching by Lila Sage. This one is a paranormal romance about Collins and Brady. Collins does not want to return back to her small hometown. She's recently lost her job and is out of money, so she's returning home to work at her parents' antique store. She's also returning home because her whole entire life she's been able to see ghosts, and that gift has for some reason recently been kind of like leaving her, and so I think she's kind of returning home to try and get back to her roots with all of that in hopes that she can kind of get it back. Instead of staying with her parents or her twin sister when she's back in town, she's going to be renting this room from the new to town upholsterer, who is Brady. He has a spare room for rent above his shop, but the shop slash place that she's staying is absolutely infested with ghosts. He obviously doesn't know that she can see ghosts, and so he kind of thinks that she's a little bit crazy at first because she's like talking to herself, aka aka trying to talk to the ghosts. I have the worst memory, so I can't really remember specifics, but they work together on some things and they slowly start to fall for each other. I just remember really loving the spooky small town vibes. I liked the time of year that it's set in and like how rainy it was described. I think I remember specifically a scene with like an abandoned church or something like that, and the vibes in that were just like so good. This was just like a fun ghosty time with a fun romance, and I have just really liked Lila Sage this year. I've read I think 3 books from her now, and I'm definitely going to continue reading from her. Next is Problematic Summer Romance by Ali Hazelwood. This is the sequel to Not in Love. So this one is following characters that were kind of touched on in the first book. We're following the younger sister of the male love interest from the first book and his best friend. This one is an age gap best friend's brother romance, and it's set in Italy. If I'm remembering right, years before the events that happen in this book, they have had this friendship and then it kind of fell apart, but now they're being forced to hang out together for a wedding in Italy. Everybody from the wedding party, pretty much except for them, gets really bad food poisoning, and so they're getting to spend a lot of time with each other. This one, I just remember it immediately sucking me in, and it just like made me forget about everything else. I listened to this during a road trip and it just made me completely forget that I was driving. It made the time go by so fast. Like I literally was just in Italy with these characters. I loved the charming Italian town that they were staying in, and I also just really loved the friends to lovers trope that was in this. Like I said, they were friends for years, had a falling out, and then they are kind of forced back together. And I think that's kind of my favorite way that that trope is done. I don't really love childhood friends to lovers. I really like adult friends to lovers. Throughout the book, we're kind of getting flashbacks to their friendship and slowly getting hints at why they fell apart, and I just for some reason really like that format. I really liked the age gap romance. It was also just a really great balance of sweet with spice. Next is Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. I'm having a hard time talking about the synopsis, so I'm just gonna read it. It says, the only life Tress has known on her island home in an emerald green ocean has been a simple one, with simple pleasures of collecting cups brought by sailors from faraway lands and listening to stories told by her friend Charlie. But when his father takes him on a voyage to find a bride and disaster strikes, Tress must stow away on a ship and seek the sorceress of the deadly midnight sea. Amid the spore oceans where pirates abound, can Tress leave her simple life behind and make her own place sailing a sea where a single drop of water can mean instant death? Reading that synopsis, I had no idea really what this book was about. I was like, a green ocean where water means death? Like, I just was so confused. The oceans in this world are spores and they're activated by water. I think specifically the Emerald Sea, if water touches the spores, it's like plants just grow like crazy, and like they grow through you and like explode through you, like they kill you. And so to board a ship so that she can go and find her friend who she's like also in love with, the only job that she can get that will allow her to be on a ship is to be the person that is in control of the water on the ship, which is like the most deadly job, because if anything happens, you're like the first one dying basically. Everyone really underestimates her because she's young. She doesn't really have very much life experience because of her growing up on this like island and stuff. She ends up just like making a lot of unlikely friends. There's lots of very quirky characters. I think her closest friend in this is a talking rat. It just felt so like charming but also ridiculous and over the top, and it took me a second to kind of get used to that. At first I was kind of getting a little bit annoyed with the over the topness and how ridiculous it was, but then I was like, girl, you just have to take it for what it is. It's literally, that's what type of book this is. And then I started to really enjoy it. It's a silly story that just has a lot of heart to it and so much creativity. I also just really loved the writing style. I think this was my first book from Brandon Sanderson. I do have a lot of his other books on my TBR, but I understand the hype and also why he is a professor like teaching writing and stuff, because he definitely is a master of his craft. Like you can tell that he just knows how to write. So if you just want like a ridiculous, fun, quirky time that has pirate vibes, found family, like this is the book for sure. Next is a book that I wasn't really sure if I wanted to put on here, but it's going on the list. It's Lights Out by Nevessa Allen. This is a book that I have recommended to so many people, especially when I find out that they've read Butcher and Blackbird and enjoyed it. I've gotten several of my friends in real life to read this book and it's just fun and spicy and ridiculous. This one follows Allie, who is a trauma nurse, so she's seen a lot of really dark stuff at work. One of her favorite things to do when she gets home from a really stressful day is to watch thirst traps on social media, especially of men who are doing them while wearing a mask. She has a favorite account though, and she comments on his videos frequently. He ends up taking an interest in her and he ends up stalking her and completing some of the fantasies that she has commented about on his videos. This is not gonna be a book for everyone, but for people that like a fun dark romance that's very steamy, there's one scene in particular, if you know, you know. Like, it's not a literary masterpiece or anything. It's exactly what you think it's gonna be, and it was great. I had such a fun time with it. I think about it all the time. I also remember really liking the audiobook. I think that it has dual narration. There's also a cat. So if that sounds like fun to you, I think you should read it. After that is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This one is about a guy named Ryland who wakes up on a spaceship. He's been asleep for a very long time. Both of his crewmates that he was supposed to wake up with are dead. He doesn't know who he is, why he's there. He doesn't know anything that's going on. So in the beginning of the book, he's just kind of like exploring the ship and trying to remember things and piece things together. He does eventually find out though that he is on this space mission to save Earth from extinction. Just like all of Andy Weir's other books, this is very like science heavy. At times it did feel like it was a little bit too much, but it does make the book feel a lot more like real. Like this is something that could actually happen. It makes it more believable. And for the most part, he does talk about it and break it down in ways that the average person can understand it. I don't want to spoil anything just in case there is someone out there who hasn't been spoiled, either from other people who have read the book or from the movie trailer, because the movie trailer gave way too much away. I'm so excited to watch it though. The book just went in a direction that I was not expecting and I loved it. I know that it's so cryptic. I want to talk more about it because what made this book a favorite for me was more than just what I talked about for the synopsis. Like there's so much more to the book that made it so good. There's obviously like a sense of like dread throughout a lot of this book because it has high stakes, but it also felt kind of cozy at times. I really loved the ending of it. It was just such a good book. I really enjoyed it. This one was on like everybody's favorites list of, I think a couple years ago, maybe like 2022 or 2023. And it had been on my TBR since then. And I'm so glad that I finally picked it up because it definitely lived up to the hype. I actually got my brother to read it because he's been getting back into reading this year and he also really loved it. I'm hoping that maybe I'll get to go see the movie with him. So loved the book. I really think that you should read it if it sounds like something you would like. Next up is Heartless Hunter. I have the UK edition of this book, so it's actually called Crimson Moth in the UK, I guess. This is what the US cover looks like though. This is by Kristen Cicerelli. It's a duology, which I really liked instead of it being like a huge like stretched on series or something. This is a romantasy about a witch and a witch hunter. This is following the female main character Rune, who is a blood witch. She's a socialite by day, but the Crimson Moth by night. She's a vigilante who is saving other witches. To be a witch in this world is to be executed, and her next rescue demands that she court Gideon Sharp, a notorious witch hunter and unforgiving revolutionary. Gideon is actively hunting the Crimson Moth. The magic in this world is all blood related. I thought it was so interesting to hear all of the different ways that witches would try and use their magic without making it obvious to people, either by accidentally showing a place where they may have cut themselves to use blood, because that can be a tell for if you're a witch. Also, whenever you use your magic, there's kind of like a mark left behind, and so that's why they call Rune the Crimson Moth, is because there's a red moth that shows up after she uses magic, and that's how they're able to kind of try and track her. I loved seeing like her acting skills and just like the lengths that she went to have this socialite facade, but then to like switch into the Crimson Moth and like try and save people, and just all the sneaking around that she had to do. I was so invested, and I love like a forbidden romance enemies to lovers story. There were also like a lot of sad moments in this book though too, that just kind of like fueled your anger for her, but also just made you feel more connected to the characters. Before I read this book, it had been a minute since I had read a romantasy that like really had me hooked like this, like Throne of Glass or From Blood and Ash, like that kind of vibe. So if you're looking for something that's gonna make you feel those feelings, I definitely recommend this. Next, I have a poetry collection. This is Starlight She Becomes by Parker Lee. For this one, I'm just gonna read my review. I said this was such an amazing collection. I loved the voice and writing style. I also loved reading about Parker's experience being a trans woman. The other themes of homophobia, disordered eating, and alcoholism, while not comfortable to read about, were important and moving. There were many poems that I could empathize with and learn from, and others that I could directly relate to. It was a very well-rounded collection that made me both smile and tear up. It was a perfect collection in my opinion. In my review on Goodreads and Fable, I do have a list of all of my favorite poems from the collection. I do have some favorite lines that I want to share with you though, just so you can kind of see what the writing style is like. First, I have a quote from the poem Repetition. I press my hand against my stomach like I'm tamping down espresso grounds. So relatable, and also just, I liked the imagery that she conveyed through that. And then from the poem Writer's Block, I tried to convince myself that there is at least one person out there who needs my version of it. even if that person is just myself. And then from the poem Lavender Haze, she is my October soulmate, my lavender love. There were so many just like beautiful poems in here about Parker's wife, and I just loved that. Like I said before, a perfect collection. I loved it. I definitely recommend it if you're a poetry lover. Next up, I do have another poetry book. This is A Little Daylight Left by Sarah Kay. I'm also just gonna read my review for this one. This is the feeling that I will chase every time I pick up a new collection. It was full of cheeky, sad, happy, and relatable poems that were so vivid in my mind. The second section is where I really fell in love with Sarah's writing, and I knew that she would be a new favorite. I really enjoyed and related to many of the themes present in this collection: love, loss, friendship, creativity, grief, and I loved her descriptive word choice combined with the purposeful layout and rhythm. I don't think I'll ever stop thinking about this one. Just like with Starlight She Becomes, I do have a list of my favorite poems in my review. I do want to share with you my favorite quote though from the collection. And if your old friend ever picked up the phone again, you would say, wherever you've been was where you needed to be, and whoever you are now, welcome back, beloved. Okay, so now we're getting into like my top favorites. The next 5 books I honestly loved pretty much equally. I was obsessed with all of them, and they all have incredibly similar vibes. At any given time, any of these could be my 3rd favorite book of the year. So I'm almost kind of just like grouping these together in like one book almost. The first one I'm going to talk about though is Violet Thistlethwaite Is Not a Villain Anymore by Emily Kremfoltz. I just barely read this one. I think like last week. Loved it. This book actually really surprised me. I kind of thought it was just going to be like a middle of the road, like 3 to 4 star book, but it was 5 stars and I really loved it. This book follows Violet Thistlethwaite, obviously. She has been the right hand to this dark sorcerer named Shadowfade for pretty much her whole life. So once he is killed, she decides that this is kind of her second chance at life, and she just wants to settle down somewhere, have a new identity, and have a flower shop. To run her flower shop that she's going to open, she ends up sharing this greenhouse with this guy named Nathaniel, who's an alchemist, or at least he used to be, and now he's just kind of running his family's apothecary. He's very grumpy and they do not start off on the right foot, but they end up having to work together to try and get rid of this blight that is taking over the town. Throughout the book, we get more flashbacks into Violet's past and what it was like being a villain and what she's trying to work through to become a better person. I really loved the small town vibes of this and all of the characters that just embrace her and make her feel welcome. I love hearing about her plant magic. When she was a villain, she was known as the Thorn Witch, so a lot of her plant magic manifested as like evil plants and like thorns and stuff like that. So now she's kind of embracing the prettier, I guess, side of plant magic. This one was so cozy and magical, but it also had complex characters and problems that they had to work through. Also, the apothecary that Nathaniel runs and Violet's flower shop are right next door to each other, and they each have chalkboards in front of their shop. And so I think it's like in between each chapter or something, their chalkboards are like talking to each other, and there's like wordplay, like they'll write a message on there aimed at the other shop, and then the other shop will like reply through their chalkboard. I need to like find one. Oh my gosh, cute. Okay, so I listened to this on audio, so I didn't have the physical copy while I was reading, but literally there's an illustration. How cute is that? So like this one, it says Marsh Apothecary, Sub-Herb, solutions to all your aches and pains, and then Rough Around the Hedges floral shop. Bought any plants lately? Like, look at this. It was so cute, and it was one of my favorite parts of the book, and now it's even more of a favorite part knowing that it's literally like has little illustrations on the inside. This one I also really loved the writing style. It was so beautiful but not pretentious, and the writing style just like really fit the whimsy and magicalness of the story. And I remember so many times while I was listening to the audiobook that I wished that I had a physical copy that I could go through and highlight favorite quotes. So this is definitely one that I'm going to reread eventually and go through and highlight favorite passages and stuff. I really loved this one. I especially loved the ending. I definitely recommend it if you love cozy fantasy. It also is a little bit spicy too. You're gonna be hearing the phrase cozy fantasy a lot for these next few books because like they literally are all cozy fantasy. This is The Enchanted Greenhouse by Sarah Beth Durst. This is the kind of sequel slash companion novel to The Spell Shop by the same author. I liked The Spell Shop, but not as much as this one. This is the perfect winter book to read. I actually read this one twice this year. I read it earlier, I think in either the spring or summer, and then I reread it it closer to Christmas. And it was so great. It was just as good the second time, if not better. Also, this does say that it's a standalone, so I do think you could read this one without having read The Spell Shop, but it does follow characters that are kind of adjacent to The Spell Shop. In this world, it's illegal to do magic unless you are a wizard or a magician. Tyrlu is not a magician, but she is so lonely that she breaks the law and creates a sentient spider plant that she can have as a friend. Once her illegal magic has been discovered, though, she gets punished by being turned into a statue, and she is put on display in the Great Library of Elysium, which was where she was working. She was pretty much going to be cursed to live the rest of her life as a statue, but one day she magically wakes up and she's in like a forest that's covered in snow. She doesn't know where she is. She's just kind of exploring around, and she ends up finding the outside wall of a giant greenhouse. She's able to find her way inside, and she discovers that the only other human that's there is a gardener that tends to this greenhouse named Yarrow. He also has a winged cat, so there's a fun little cat creature in this book too. He gives her food and a place to stay, and then she ends up wanting to stay on this island with him and help him repair the greenhouse, because the greenhouse is mysteriously like falling apart. There used to be a wizard there that was maintaining the greenhouse, and Yarrow used to have a lot more help with the greenhouse, but everybody has left. They also discover a sentient flower in the wizard's old home, and she is also going to help them restore the greenhouse. This was literally so cozy because it's like cold outside, and like the descriptions of snow just make you feel cold, but then you go inside to one of these greenhouses and you're surrounded by all of the flowers and stuff. There's also lots of descriptions of baking and food. I loved the descriptions of the plants and the sentient plants. I also really liked the romance. It's very Grumpy Sunshine, but I loved the character development. I just loved the characters in general. It was such a sweet story. I loved the found family. And if you need something to read for the rest of this season, but you don't want it to be a Christmas read, I highly recommend this one. Next up, I have An Ancient Witch's Guide to Modern Dating by Cecilia Edward. This book, I've also read this one twice this year. I love it so much. This one is definitely like set around Halloween, so I'd recommend reading it around that time of year. This one is about Thorn Scarheart, who is a 39-year-old witch who's having trouble landing a husband in the 17th century, despite the help of a local matchmaker and an arsenal of love potions. She's afraid that she has missed her chance at love and romance. When one of Thorn's potion brews backfires spectacularly, she's hurled more than 300 years into the future, landing in a bustling city where her cottage has been turned into a historical museum. Though the 21st century has its challenges, Thorn finds out that while her chances of finding love here may not be perfect, at least they're not impossible. She dives headfirst into online dating, and so you get to hear about like just her experience with that. Also about her just like fitting into modern society, or I guess her not fitting into modern society. She does end up making some friends that are helping her like with her dating experience and stuff, and she does end up falling in love and having a romance. There's also a bunch of magical talking cats that were some of my favorite characters in this one. There's also some kind of like complicated family relationships that are explored in this one. It was just such a good standalone story. I loved it so much. I still think about it all the time. Definitely a new all-time favorite. Another cozy witchy book. This one is Best Hex Ever by Nadia El Fassi. I'm obsessed with this book. It was so good. This one is following Dina, who's a kitchen witch. She owns a bakery. Her pastries and treats are infused with magic. She does have a hex hanging over her head though. Dina's partners are all cursed with bad luck as long as they're with her, which makes it impossible for her to fall in love. And then our love interest, Scott, he's a museum curator, and they both have this kind of like meet cute, but nothing really comes of it, but they just can't stop thinking about each other. And then they both end up running into each other again when they're on the way to a wedding. Dina's best friend is getting married to Scott's best friend. So they're both gonna be staying in this, I think like a small town or maybe like a manor or something together during the wedding festivities. And they just end up growing closer during all of that. I love their romance. I loved the magic. I also just really loved the female friendship. Dina's friends are a pretty big part of the story. Like her friendship with them is talked about a lot, and I loved that aspect of this so much. Dina and Scott are having this chemistry, but also her hex is still kind of like looming over her, and she really wants it to be able to work out with Scott. Another aspect of this book that I really enjoyed was hearing about different talismans and good luck charms. One of the collections that Scott is working on for his museum is a collection of good luck charms and talismans from different cultures, and that's going to be going on a tour where they return each of the artifacts to their original countries. But I loved hearing about different good luck charms and stuff from different cultures. Also just the times where he has seen good luck charms in his own life. He's adopted adopted, and if I'm remembering right, it was like one of the first days that he was with his adoptive moms, he saw a ladybug and he knew that everything was gonna be okay. And that, I'm like gonna cry. My grandma who passed away last year, her thing was ladybugs. And so whenever I see a ladybug, it means a lot to me. And so reading that in a book kind of like took me by surprise, and it just made me love this book even more. Also, Dina has like this magical henna on her arms that is kind of like animated, and it will do certain things or make different designs based on like how she's feeling and stuff. And I thought that was a really cool touch. This one has a peculiar hedge maze. It has palm reading by candlelight. It has a midnight Halloween ritual. It was just everything that I wanted. It was so good. I highly recommend it. And then my last cozy magical witch book is A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandana. I think that I also read this one twice this year. This one follows a witch named Sarah, who used to be one of the most powerful witches, but then she resurrects her great aunt, who I think either like died right in front of her or like she just found like had recently passed away or something, resurrects her, and then I think her punishment for that is getting her powers taken away. So that happened in the past, and she's been living like a decade or more without her magic, or at least with very, very, very small magic. She runs a magical inn with her aunt. It attracts kind of like loner, misfit, very unique people. And this is also the kind of inn where you can't just plug in the address and go there. You can only find it if you need it, or you'll find it when you most need it. The love interest in this one is a magical historian named Luke, who ends up going to the inn. I don't remember if he's being sent there on like a work assignment or if he is just being sent there by someone who knows about the inn and knows that he needs a break or something. But he brings his little sister who's autistic to go stay there with him, and he just gets roped in with all of the people living in this inn. He starts to get close to Sarah, and it's just a beautiful story of found family. Sarah is trying to get her magic back, and so that's a part of the story. There's also this like semi-villainous talking fox that is part of her life that's living at the inn with them. The inn itself is magical, and it will sometimes show people little snippets of the history of the inn, like a scene that may have happened there, like in the kitchen or something. It's almost like it will play the memory of it for people to watch, and because of that you get to see some of the low points that Sarah has gone through, and she's able to work through them. There's a lot of hard things that these characters have to work through, but it really just helps you see their character development, and it helps them grow together more with like sharing those hard things that they've gone through with each other. Just like I've said with every other book on this list, it was so good. I loved it. I highly recommend it. Please read it. All right, now we're down to my top 2 favorite books of the year. Honestly, depending on which day you ask me, these ones might flip spots, but as of right now, I feel like this is where they belong. My second favorite book of the year is We Used to Live Here by Marcus Kleiwer. This was on everybody's favorites list of last year, so I knew that I had to read it, and it did not disappoint. This absolutely lived up to the hype. This is like my perfect type of horror. I had a few people tell me that I needed to read this one physically, or at least tandem read it, because I usually do most of my reading with audiobooks, so I was so glad that I had people tell me that I needed to read it physically as well, because there is a lot to the story that is in the physical version of this book. There's like things that you need to decode and decipher. I really loved that it was interactive in that way. I wouldn't say that anything that you need to decode is like integral to the story, but I just feel like it does add something to it, so I would still recommend reading it physically or tandem reading it. This is about Charlie and Eve, who are a young queer couple who flip houses. They got a killer deal on this old house, and they're there trying to set up and get situated for this future like demo and remodel that they're going to be doing, and they get this knock at the door, and it's this guy and his family, and he's like, hey, I used to live in this house growing up. I would love to show my family around. They end up letting the family in. They let him do like a tour around the house. They're not really leaving, and then they get snowed in and they're forced to stay in this house. It's really awkward and uncomfortable, and weird things start happening. You don't know who to trust. You don't know what's going on. This was so creepy and unsettling. It also felt kind of like fever dreamy a little bit. I just thought this was great. It was one of the first books that I read of this year, along with my #1 favorite, and they have just stuck with me throughout the entire year. This was just such a fun reading experience, and it was just like such a good horror. Like I said before, just like my perfect type of horror. I love watching like movies and TV shows and stuff that have kind of similar vibes to this. I don't think this will be for everyone, especially if you're the kind of person who needs answers to everything, but it's definitely one of my favorite books of the year and of all time. And then my number one favorite book of 2025 is Give Me Butterflies by Jillian Meadows. I love this story and these characters so much. I've read this book twice now. I originally had it as an e-arc from NetGalley, and then I reread it once it came out on audiobook, and it's so good. I literally just think about it all the time. I've been recommending it to like literally everyone. This one is a Grumpy Sunshine romance. It's also a STEM romance, and there's also a single guardian trope. Millie and Finn both work at the same science museum. Millie is an entomologist, which is a bug scientist, and Finn is an astronomer. They do not start out on the right foot. They have a little bit of enemies to lovers in the beginning, or I guess like enemies to friends. Finn has recently lost his sister, who he was really close with, and he has become the guardian to his two nieces, who are just some of the cutest little girls. I loved reading any scene that had them in it. There's a kind of like summer camp children's week or something at the museum, and Finn brings the nieces there, and they end up getting to meet Millie a little bit, and they all end up kind of becoming friends, and Millie kind of gets involved in their lives a little bit. She ends up coming over and helping, I think, teach them like new recipes and stuff, because I don't think Finn really cooks. So she's going over and they're like making dinner and stuff together, and she's like baking with them, and then obviously her and Finn start to kind of catch feelings for each other. There are some dates that they go on together. They're so cute. There's a scene where he eats cookie dough off of her fingers that was very good. There's also a scene of her like taking care of him while he's sick. This was a fun, cute romance, but it had a lot of deeper themes in it. These characters felt real, and they had gone through a lot of stuff, and they worked through a lot of it together. You could just really feel the chemistry between Finn and Millie, and I loved the little family that they form with the nieces and stuff. I also really love Millie's family. They have like a family group chat that's kind of fun that you get to see Millie like be a part of and stuff. This is going to be a series, and it's going to follow Millie and her sisters, I think. I have an arc for the next book, and I'm so excited about it. There's even more kind of deeper, darker stuff in each of their backstories that like gets explored, that they help each other through. It was just so good. You really get to see them like show up for each other, and I love it so much. Jillian Meadows is definitely a new favorite author. I read one of her other books. I think I mentioned it in my honorable mentions, Wreck My Plans. That one was also really cute, and it follows characters or a character from this book. So yeah, anyway, new favorite author, new favorite book for sure. Please go read this if you like romance. I really think that there's something in this book for everyone to enjoy. Like, I really can't see anyone like hating this book. It's just so good. So wholesome. Also spicy though too. We do like some spice. Those are all of my favorite books of 2025. I love looking back on my year and picking my favorites, and I just love talking about them and sharing them with everyone. Please let me know in the comments if we have any favorites in common, or just let me know what your favorite book of the year was. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.